What's up? What's up? Welcome back to another market recap. Today is April 23rd, 2025. I had one trade today for 1R, and we'll get into it in a bit. It was in the 9 o'clock hour. But to start with, at 7 a.m., I had this Aussie yen on watch, and it never really pulled back to give me an entry. I mean, technically it did pull back to give an entry, but it pulled back after it had already pushed to target. I mean, at the start of the hour, price is roughly sitting here, halfway between the entry and the target area. It never really pulled back, and it just kind of pushed to the S1 and then started retracing. At the same time this started retracing, I'm watching all the other yens, and all the other yen pairs didn't look super great. They were similar kind of price action, but this had like the cleanest kind of breakout. Like I really like the overall trend, the trade rather. I just wish it would have pulled back a bit and given me an entry. By the time it started to pull back though, and then the combination of the yen pairs looking like crap, I decided to stay out of this since it had already hit my target. So it's already kind of against my rules to take it at this point. The only kind of difference is normally my target is like the 10-minute 50 or the 1 hour 50 or the 10-minute 200 or something, right? As you can see where my target is on this 10-minute chart, like there's plenty of room still to move to the 1 hour 50, 10-minute 200. So it's still kind of like a valid breakdown. It's halfway between those EMAs. So it's really like an IBO style play on this 10-minute time frame. So even though it tapped my target, I think you could also justify entering it when it pulled back. Granted, my fib level right here is drawn for the original size at the beginning of the hour. The correct fib would have been something like that. So at that point, entering at 0.382, stop above 0.618, it still would have been able to fit just fine. But it's really mainly, if the other yen pairs kind of confirmed my bias on this pair, I still probably would have entertained taking this trade. But given the fact with the other yens looking like crap, and there is correlation, right? Like stuff will move a little bit individual, but if there's a large yen movement, it's going to affect all yen pairs. As well as there was a large Aussie movement at the same time, and they both kind of contradicted my bias on this trade. So I chose to stay out. And the trade didn't really play out. It would have tapped me in and then immediately tapped me out for a loss. So that was the first trade I had on watch. 8 o'clock, I had nothing on watch. And then 9 o'clock hour, I had dollar Mexican on watch. And this is the trade I took. So a really clean CBO. Rather like this trade, honestly. But a clear, strong push, break of a downwards trend. So becoming bullish, it still has room to move at this point to the 1 hour 50. At the time of identifying the setup, the 1 hour had closed with this nice kind of bullish candle off of recent support. Everything pretty much looked bullish on this pair for me, from the 2 minute to the 10 minute to the 1 hour, as well as the 30-second time frame. It all looked bullish. So everything kind of aligned, and it gave me a nice pullback. I classified this as a limit order, but I didn't technically use a limit order. I was kind of just watching price action. Because this is also around, like, this price action is 10, 15 minutes after the tariff news came out today with the Trump administration saying they're going to work with China or some crap. And so all pairs unanimously blew up and started doing crazy stuff, right? But realistically, like all pairs started moving as we've been anticipating for the past couple of weeks. Like there's been these huge dollar movements, and now like that news kind of like sparked the movement to the opposite direction, which they all needed correction. So it makes sense. It's just people use that news to make the correction. So I was a little weary about entering this trade just because like everything was very volatile. And so I was contemplating, do I want to trade with this kind of news volatility right now? Because I usually don't like trading news. But the setup, I couldn't find a reason really not to take it. I was like, if I remove the tariff news from this setup that's in front of me that I'm currently looking at, would I take it? And then my answer became yes. And then when that happened, I just hit okay and entered the trade. So I actually entered it a little bit below 0.382, just a hair. So actually a little bit better price than just putting my entry at 0.382. Ironically, I don't know, there's two ways to look at this trade. I went pretty aggressive with my management when it came to locking my 1-to-1. Like it had just pushed above my 1-to-1, sitting at like 1.2 or so. And I decided, there is volatility right now. I've got over 1R in front of me. I want to do my best to capture at least the 1R that's in front. Granted, I have a 2R target, but anything 1 to 2, I do my best to try and capture. And so I looked at the market volatility and I was like, I'm just going to lock the 1 at this point. And so I locked it. And of course, like right after I locked it, price just came down and tapped it and took me out for a 1-to-1. And then price did retrace pretty hard after that. And there's a good possibility if I didn't lock the 1-to-1, my management plan does allow for fail-safe exits, which would essentially be like a complete break of this 30-second EMA, which we got right here. Granted, my stop, if I never went to P3, was just sitting at break even. So I would have been fine from that perspective. But there is a possibility I would have manually closed the position on that break of the EMA. So if I did not close, because typically when I look at a break like this, I'll wait until it breaks, and then I'm watching these next few candles form right here on the 30-second time frame. And so if they start to push bearish a little bit more, like a good bit more, I'll just go ahead and close the position manually. So like I'm sitting there with my finger over the button because this stuff does move fairly fast because, hell, it's a 30-second time frame right here, 5-second time frame right here. I'm just targeting a 2-minute run. And the entirety of this trade was less than 20 minutes. So, but yeah, I'll sit there and I'll watch these candles form. And if I start to see like another bearish push, at that point I'll usually close. So that never really happened. So there's a 50-50 chance if I would have closed or not, I feel like, looking at this. Hindsight, never should have closed this trade because it just continued to push all the way to my target. So, and it went to 2R. And I was already in the trade, so I could capture 2R. It just depends on how aggressive I want to lock my 1. With the volatility, and technically I kind of had this 200 in the way of my 2-to-1 target on the 10-minute. I chose just to go ahead and lock the 1 when I had the opportunity to lock it. So anyway, quick little just 1-to-1 on this trade. Ended up playing out for the full 2. And then if we get out of the replay, it continued pushing even further. And honestly, I was kind of hoping it would just keep pushing and turn into a nice IBO on the 1-hour time frame for later today. But it kind of just stalled at that 1 hour 50. So, and it's just kind of moved sideways since. But there was a potential to capture like say 3R or so on this trade. I never really capture that much. I would have just been at the 2R kind of point. What I am tracking though, and I did classify this in my sheet, is possibly switching to no management whatsoever on trades. Like my management style right now is like I enter the trade. If it breaks the 30-second 50, I go to P1. right? And I clipped the recent low, taking roughly half risk off the trade. And then if price action continues up and then comes back and retests 30-second 50 and then continues in the direction that I need it to go, so in this case bullish, I would then clip that low, i.e. moving my stop to essentially break even on P2. And then if it gets beyond my 1-to-1, I'll lock my 1-to-1 at P3. And that's how this trade played out. If we go back to it for a second, right? Like you can see my P1s right here. Price breaks the 30-second 50. I go to P1. I clip this low. Got to give it enough room because there's still like a spread, and the spread is more than usual because it's a very small time frame. So I just want to make sure I don't get knocked out just due to a spread, but because price actually broke that low. So if this was a 1 hour time frame where the spread really is irrelevant, then I would be clipped almost right below it. And then P2 is right here. My stop, it's kind of hard to see because it's on the pivot, but it just moves to break even. And then P3, my stop moves up here to my 1-to-1. So that's my typical management style. But what I have been tracking is no management. Like enter the trades all the same, but do nothing. They either play out for 2R or they play out for a full loss. There is no partial losses or partial wins. And the interesting thing I'm finding so far is that I would be netting a much higher return by employing no management on micro time frame trades so far. In the month and a half, I've been tracking no management. So there is some things that change, like trades that I'm out of right now, like the euro yen trade I took yesterday for 1R. That trade took like 3 hours to play out to the full 2R target. It would have played out though. But me now being in that trade for 3 hours prevents me from taking a trade the following couple of hours. Now, in a situation where there's nothing else to trade, it doesn't matter. But in the situation where there is other stuff to trade, it now prevents me from being able to take that trade. So I don't know. And there's also like the personality bit of it. I like being able to make a trade a win. So I like being able to just take the one. But on paper, I would be making more money if I just didn't do any management whatsoever, enter the trade, and then just walked away and let Jesus take the wheel, essentially. So far, that's what my findings are coming up with. So I'm still contemplating if I want to switch to a no management style, something I'm going to keep tracking and just keep, gathering data on. But it's something I'm contemplating because a no management style on this trade would have net 2R. So, but either way, right after I took this and it closed, I was also watching Kiwi dollar that hour. It was on the beginning of my watch and the same time as the dollar Mexican. Dollar Mexican was really the first to present like a nice clean entry. This presented an entry as well, but you kind of had this double bottom and then a pullback right here, which I wasn't a huge fan of, especially because on dollar Mexican, I just have a clean pullback right there. I much prefer this because this kind of sticks with wave theory. I got wave 1, this is my wave 2 pullback. Here's my next, wave 3, and then Kiwi dollar right here though. This could be wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4. This could be wave 5. And then now with this pullback, it's a change of trend. And if I enter right here, it just still continues up and takes me out. So that's the kind of like risk of a setup like this. Like I prefer it really to enter on this pullback, but it wasn't really at the beginning of the hour. But this is a trade I'd been watching. Like I've been watching the dollar pairs for reversals, so dollar strength again. And it started to come in with all of the tariff news because it's the same kind of, volatility spike right here in price action. And so the same kind of breakdown that I got on dollar Mexican that allowed me to get in the trade. This happened here on Kiwi dollar. But the price action right here just got weird. It got very kind of, choppy. I didn't care for it at all. But my overarching thought about, hey, this is going to probably go short from here, my bias is still in play. And so I sat here and I watched this for a little while. And ultimately, I decided not to take it just due to this weird price action right here. And I think it's a valid reason not to take it. I think you'd honestly argue both ways to take this trade. Because on one hand, I'd been waiting to take this pair short for over a week. And there's the first kind of opportunity for me to get in per my strategies. It's just ugly. It's not like a clean setup. So it's just at the end of the day, just like, do I want to force the trade? It's kind of what I started asking myself. And the answer really was no. And I feel like if I took a trade that had this choppy price action, I'd be forcing it. And after I had just taken a win, there's really no need for me to force a trade, right? Like it becomes somewhat of greed coming into play. So I decided to stay out of it. Now, if we get rid of this, you will see that the trade played out. So if I would have taken it, it would have been a pretty simple 2R. I wouldn't have been able to do much until, price broke down right here. And I was watching it even when price is breaking here, when price had pushed up and was coming back down right there. I was watching it there and I could have entered it live, but I still decided not to. And entering right there kind of live, it just would have gone straight to the target of 2R. So a potential 2R I missed today, but I think there's valid reasons to not take it. I had nothing in the 10 o'clock hour, and then the 11 o'clock hour, I had pound Aussie, another really clean kind of setup, very kind of similar to the dollar Mexican trade. Just like a wave one CBO breakout and then coming back for a pullback. So playing a wave 3 CBO essentially is what I was looking to do here. The negative is that it had already hit the 10-minute 200, which is the 1 hour 50. So it kind of has already hit the target. Is the main issue with this trade. But everything else is stupid clean. I mean, you've got this downward, price action, a very strong clean break of it. You have the same thing on the 10-minute time frame. You have deceleration on the 1 hour, then a strong bullish engulfing on the 1 hour. So everything's super bullish. So I was entertaining still taking this trade, even though it tapped off of the target, just because everything else was there for it. But it never pulled back. It never really gave an entry. So, and just kind of continued along. Ultimately pushing past those initial resistances. So, and this happens sometimes, like when everything else is super clean, those resistance levels at that point can be broken. But they're typically not going to be broken when things are just kind of, they're all right, but they're not great. As well as you had support right here. And this support level is solid. Every single time price has touched it, it's reversed off of it. So, yeah, either way. So 11 o'clock, trade didn't pull back, just pushed the target. 12 o'clock, I didn't have any 1 hour setups, but I did have this 4 hour setup. And it was like a 4 hour CBO. But it never really pulled back either. And this is a trade that, I don't know. It's like an IBO right here was right there was an entry. You could take in that trade right here was a valid IBO. And then you have another pullback and another kind of shot at an IBO right there, depending on how you looked at it. And then price kind of pushed up and gave it, trend change. And now it's breaking down again. So it's not the best, but I did like this overall price action. It is reversing off of a key level. I have been waiting for this pair to give a reversal, just like all dollar pairs for a little while. And it had a strong bearish push. So if price did kind of retrace and decelerate here, I wouldn't enter this with a limit. I'd kind of wait to see how price decelerated and gave me a trend change on like the 5 second, 30 second to enter live. But it never really pulled back. It just kind of hung out. So wasn't able to enter Aussie dollar. And then I didn't really have anything else on watch for the rest of the day. I had this dollar CAD right here. I saw this trade occurring, but I'm not ready to commit capital to this kind of strategy, but it is something I'm paying attention to. And I think we discussed it in another market recap of playing essentially what is a swing and breakout strategy, but using the same concept as like a micro time frame breakout, where just like there's a pattern, it breaks the pattern for a reversal. So you enter on the pattern break with a stop clip above the recent high, shooting for a 2-to-1 before any, kind of main resistance and stuff or support. And the 2-to-1 didn't quite fit here, right? I think at the time of the trade, it was like right at this 10-minute 50. So it sort of kind of fit. But as this trade is played out now and price has really just kind of gone sideways, everything doesn't really align anymore. Hell, I think we can go back in time here. Just see what it looked like right here. Yeah. So nearly aligned at the time of the trade. So, but this trade would have played out for something here, right? I think you could have captured one, and really on this final breakdown right there, I think you could lock one and then you'd probably be tapped out for one right now. So interesting. Just something I'm kind of, again, paying attention to. But I'm realizing it has to have some kind of level to bounce off of. Like you really need like a decent horizontal support level with some EMAs, maybe even a daily S1, R1, right? Like it needs a good level to hit and then reverse from, kind of like what it's done here. Like it had a decent level to hit and it, consolidated price broke the consolidation to the downside, giving a trend change. You enter on the trend change and then it is what it is. So it's just a trend line strategy. But I'm starting to see these more and more. And so it's just paying attention. It's maybe something I entertain taking next month. I might commit to trying to take these trades. I'm going to label them as MBOs, so micro breakout trades, and see how it goes. So. But either way, that's my day. One trade for plus 1R. And yeah. And that's all I got. I will see you guys tomorrow. See you.